Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Friday, January 30th. Derek Van Riper here with Eno Saris, continuing our position preview series. This is part 3 of our 2026 outfield preview. The previous 2 installments were released earlier this week. We covered all of the infield positions on previous episodes. So if you're just joining us for the first time, you can go back and get caught up over the course of the weekend. Pitcher week on tap next week. That gets underway on Tuesday and lines up with the release of Eno's updated starting pitcher rankings on The Athletic.
Tuesday, baby. Got those 75 blurbs in yesterday, and now I'm just doing the painstaking, this guy up 2, this guy down 2, this guy no, this guy up 5, this guy down 5.
I think given forever. That it's Friday that you're saying that, you're in a pretty good spot. If you're on final tweaks and all the blurbs are done, you've done exceptionally well staying on schedule.
I feel good to 75, though, and really this is to 150. So then again, like we said with Keith Law, on the episode this week, that, I kind of feel like the difference between like 120 and 145, I don't spend as much time on that. I'm going to group them. There's some guys in the 120s I like,
False precision, I think, is what he called it at a certain point. I think that's a good way to describe it. I'll have some overall hitter rankings coming up 1 week after the pitcher rankings drop, so I've got some time to work on that. There's no blurbs associated with those. That helps the process a little bit in terms of me getting them turned around. Maybe in a future year, though, we'll get some blurbs out there. We shall see. Let's pick up things where we left off, just outside the top 200 overall, kind of in that pick 225 range by ADP. These episodes are organized by where players are drafted in terms of early average draft position over at the NFBC. All this is subject to change, right? So if you listen to this episode in mid-February, some of the things that you see on the screen might not make sense in terms of where these players are going then, but the overall assessments of these players, I think, will still be useful. So let's begin with tier 5A, as we're calling it, kind of in the 225 to 250 range. That includes Kerry Carpenter, Heliot Ramos, Jack Caglianone, Jordan Beck, Anthony Santander, and Ramón Laureano. And this is my favorite part of this position. Now that we're like past pick 200, every little cluster does different things, right? That's what we like about the outfield. You can correct for other parts of your build as you move through the bottom half of your roster. We'll start at the top, though. Kerry Carpenter, I thought, had really intriguing skills coming out of 2024. I think that's still true, even after what he did last season. But I don't necessarily like him in leagues where you have weekly lineup changes. I think the usage is big side platoon masher. Just a little bit of a defensive question there. I like the fact that we saw the K rate come down a little more to 22.8%, but he also wasn't quite as patient. He wasn't getting on base at the same clip we've seen in the past. So I'm curious where you're going with Kerry Bonds in your 2026 builds, given some of the changes we saw a year ago.
I'm 0 for so far on the season, but I think you're right to point out that I've been in draft and hold season. I've been in weekly season. It looks like he is a value to where he is going based on his projections. But if you can't use him all the time in your weekly league because he's got 2 lefties coming up, then he's less than the projections say he is. You're not even going to get those things. So daily leagues, I do like him as a guy you can put in, but even in daily leagues, you have to be careful sometimes with platoon guys. I just looked at some quick math. I know this is Kerry Carpenter against Juan Soto. It's unfair, but it's not about, power or any of that things. I just wanted to point out how many plate appearances per game Kerry Carpenter gets versus Juan Soto, which is 3.5 for Kerry Carpenter, 4.5 for Juan Soto. So on average, even when you are playing Kerry Carpenter in a daily league, you're going to get a plate appearance less because you might get taken out because of a late lefty. And with very little defensive value, there are times where he just gets taken out because they're winning and somebody else needs to go to DH or whatever it is. There's all sorts of reasons that Kerry Carpenter loses playing time, and it's not have anything to do with how good he is at the plate. In fact, I think he could play against lefties, but we haven't really had any indication that he will do so.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the plan there. He made 5 starts against the left-handed pitchers in 2025. That was a season in which he did miss some time with injury, but it gives you an idea of like just how aggressively they try to use him off the bench in those types of scenarios. So very, very format dependent player, but be mindful of just the fact that he comes out of games early, even when he starts against a righty, because they're going to play a matchup somewhere else later on in a lot of those games. Heliot Ramos is pretty interesting here, though, because I think I see clear everyday playing time for him. We talked about the arrival of Harrison Bader to play center field. Maybe that ultimately helps mask a little bit of Ramos's defensive limitations, even though he's been playing left now for a little while. I just look at this guy and I don't see a super exciting player. I think this fits kind of more into the young oatmeal sort of bucket, but I don't really see a lot of pressure on his playing time in San Francisco either.
Yeah, I'm in on Heliot Ramos. I want as many shares as I can get because I do think he has really high floor. The nice thing about right-handed players that are, close to full time, there's no pressure on them to platoon them. If Heliot Ramos stays above that line, and he's been a 740 OPS guy for his career, he's not going to get platoon. He's not going to end up in the wrong side of a platoon. He's going to play every day. He's also the only player that's ever only right-handed hitter that's ever splash hit in San Francisco. So he has legit home run power, 77th percentile bat speed. He's got enough sprint speed at 50th percentile that the stolen bases are open question. Now I had this down in the Jung Lee section if you want to know how the sausage is made, but it's relevant here. I reached out to Andrew Baggerly, and he says they have not even announced who the first base coach is under new manager Tony Vitello, which is weird. It might be Hector Borg. We don't know. We don't know that much about Hector Borg. So I would say that his stolen base total and Jung Lee's stolen base total are an open question mark. These are things that are set by the manager and by the first base coach. And we'll talk a little bit more about this next time we have Jed Lowry on. But I would say that he could steal 10 this year. He could even steal 15 if they decide to be an aggressive team. He does have enough foot speed for that. And then lastly, you just look at the projections, which are a very sober way of looking at things. I love this kind of a list. I'm always trying to get as many of the players I can off this, which is the list of the projections better than the market. And here you have Heliot Ramos as the 34th best outfielder by composite ranks and 49th in ADP. That's someone I want to target. Jung Lee has a similar spread. I think people are a little bit too afraid of San Francisco. They do play on the road. These are players that, don't necessarily rely on power in the way that you might be afraid of. Mickey Moniak is on here. We'll talk about him later. Jesus Sanchez, Jordan Walker, Matt Wallner, big bat speed guy, Adolis García, Kerry Carpenter, we just talked about, and Jordan Beck. I'm shopping off this list, and I want Heliot Ramos when I can get him.
Yeah, I think he just covers a third or fourth outfield spot in a league where you got to start five pretty effectively because you're just not going to see much of a downturn in playing time as long as he's able to stay healthy. Jack Caglianone is interesting because you're paying for production we just haven't seen at the big league level yet, right? I know he's a prospect that you like, swings the bat really hard, showed big time power in college. What are you doing with him in redraft leagues? Obviously, you like him long term, but how much do you like him at this price for this year?
Yeah, it is a little bit weird when you go to Arizona Fall League and people ask you who your favorite sleeper is. You have a presentation on bat speed and you're like, Jack Caglianone, like that. I love his bat speed. He does swing it hard. 77 mile per hour bat speed would give him sort of top 10 bat speed in the league. So yes, I do love him, but he has a very flat swing. And I just feel like some of the flat swing guys take a little bit of time to lock it in. You have to, if you're a flat swing guy, either take the Juan Soto approach, which is I'm not going to swing anything low. But Caglianone makes a lot of contact and doesn't have a great sense of the zone. So he does have some work to do. And because he has some work to do, and because I'm not sure when it'll lock in, I find myself now not being, I have one share so far. It's the price has risen to the point where I'm not as into him because I love Heliot Ramos. I love Jordan Beck. I love the guys around him. And I think they've done more to show it already. And also, if Heliot Ramos and Jordan Beck have 75th percentile outcomes for this season, right? And that's what you're maybe asking for from Jack, or 75th percentile compared to what we've seen, at least, then Ramos and Beck are going to steal bases. They're going to steal 10 bases in that situation. They're going to hit 25 homers in that situation. And Jack Caglianone, I don't know. What I see as like peak outcome for him is, if it all worked out, he has some similarities with Junior Caminero. He has like the same flat swing, the same kind of high bat speed. I think he has the same hit tool as Jack. So could he be a left-handed a Junior Caminero? I think so. But, Junior Caminero also did that in a minor league park. So we don't even know what Junior Caminero does in the Trop, right? We also don't know what Jack's going to do in these new dimensions. I would say, like, at the end, I think there is upside here for him to be a 280 hitter with 30 homers. I think he can do that. I don't think he'll steal a lot. And I don't know when he'll get to that upside. So
280 with 30 homers doesn't feel like that's coming anytime soon.
It didn't look like it. Like, he was swinging at everything last year because he could make contact with everything. He really needs to dial it in to where he can swing at things that he can drive the best. And, maybe the fences will help where it gives him enough. Oh yeah, I can get Jacket out if I, focus on middle in and up or something, That's the kind of thing that, and then we discussed with Jed that there are actually some mechanical things that he may need to get in line where, his base, his what was it? His center of mass was a little bit too far forward. He needs to but that is something that you could just click. You could just talk to the hitting coach one day and be like, oh yeah, all right, I'll stay back. I'll do these drills, and boom, there you go. So then again, like 280, 25 homers, what do you think Heliot Ramos is going to do? I think he's going to do 270, 25 homers, 5 steals.
Yeah, it's not that different. I think that'd be
and
your
I'm
case.
Pretty sure that Ramos is going to do that, right?
Right. Yeah, I think it'd also be if you built a really solid foundation and you wanted to take a swing at someone that could have it all click faster than we're saying, then that's probably your best case for Jack Caglianone. I also don't love the depth chart for the Royals in terms of pressure on him. He crushed AA and AAA, so he doesn't have a ton to prove if they send him back down. I think any demotions would be quick, but it just could be a little more like 240 with the power initially, and that's easier to find as you move through these next few tiers. So I think that's where the short-term trepidation is for me with Caglianone. I think eventually he'll get close to those levels that you were throwing out there. Jordan Beck at least does a lot of things well. I think the thing I'm watching closely in 2026 is how he handles same-handed pitching. His splits against lefties were quite a bit better than what he did against righties. We know it's tough for any player going in and out of Colorado. I just want to see him play another full season. They were good about just letting him play last year. 148 games, 588 plate appearances, 16 homers, 19 steals. The average at 258 was solid for basically his first full season in the big leagues. We saw 55 games from him in 2024. I would say, given the circumstances, it was actually fine. I just wonder, how quickly is he going to progress, right? And it helps a lot. Just comparing back to Caglianone, you might say Caglianone has more real-life upside. In fantasy, Beck has so much more floor because of his contribution in that stolen bases department.
I just love the fact, again, he's right-handed. He's 24. On this team, they're not going to start making him a small side platoon guy so they can get Jake McCarthy out there. You know what I mean? I don't think that's going to happen. And in right field, you have Jake McCarthy and Tyler Freeman. You have a natural platoon there. Mickey Moniak is a left-hander. Could he start stealing some time? But you also need a DH. This is a team where I feel like Beck, Tovar, Doyle, you just got to play him, man. Hunter Goodman, that's if you're going anywhere, that's your young core. Those are the guys that are going to take you somewhere. They're flawed in my mind, a lot of them, and I wish all of them didn't strike out so much. I mean, all 4 of them strike out too much for what they do, I think. But maybe that's a function of what you said, going away and coming to Coors and just having, funhouse mirror stuff happen. But anyway, what I do love is there's enough bat speed, there's enough foot speed, he's an athlete. I think that he doesn't chase that much. There's enough selectivity here. There's enough bat to ball here. There could be another level for him, for Jordan Beck to go from age 24 to 25 and cut his strikeout rate to even something like 26% wouldn't be crazy. he did that, he could start hitting 260, 270. I don't know that he'll ever have a huge on-base percentage, but could hit it 320, 330 on that level. All of this would put him high, basically make him lead off, I think. And then, what does he do with stolen bases? I mean, the projection is for 250, 16-16. And, there are 34 guys like that, which sounds like a lot, but that's not actually a lot, especially where Jordan Beck goes in the draft. A lot of those 34 are gone. So if you want a guy who will give you a little bit of power, a little bit of speed, and won't hurt your batting average, Jordan Beck is a really good selection. So I just took him in a draft to be my third outfielder in a draft and hold, and feel pretty good about it. Came back with Josh Lowe, who I have a ton of, and we'll talk about soon.
Third outfielder in a 15-team league where you start 5 is actually a pretty firm vote of confidence from you in Jordan Beck. So interesting to see it presented that way. Anthony Santander goes in this bucket. If you're looking for an injury-plagued rebound season to try to chase, I mean, this is what you could get from Santander in 2026. You might remember this guy was 6th in homers between 2022 and 2024 in that 3-year window. So only Judge, Ohtani, Schwarber, Alonso, and Matt Olson hit more homers than Anthony Santander over those 3 seasons combined. Shoulder and back injuries last year, though, were the culprits that cost him a lot of time after signing that big deal with the Jays. We like the lineup. I would assume that in year 2 of a 5-year deal like that, they want to push him out there and see if he can just bounce back. So where are you at on the possibility of an Anthony Santander rebound?
I don't have any shares. I don't know why, because I kind of love this situation. I mean, he's a switch hitter, and all the projections are, giving him, 530, 560 plate appearances. And, over those 3 years when he was doing so well in homers, he was a perennial 650 guy in plate appearances. And I kind of think that when you look at this roster, it is tempting to say, oh, well, he doesn't have much defensive value. What will happen at DH with him and George Springer in the outfield? But I think you can also, when you're looking at who would take playing time from him, if I need a bat in the lineup tonight and I've got a switch hitter with power like Santander, why am I trying to get Nathan Lucas in over him or Davis Schneider in over him? I think that Schneider, Lucas, Straw, those guys are platoon partners for somebody else. And so Santander could get 650 plate appearances this year, could get you 30 homers. Also, the projections all say for Santander that he's only going to hit 230, 220. I mean, he hit about 240, 245 over those last 3 years. So his career batting average is 241. So I think there's enough where you can say, hey, take Santander where the projections say you should. And there is actually upside. Despite his age, 31 is not that old. There is upside in that they just find a position for him and, give him DH basically, or give him left field, and he just plays every day as a switch hitter, gets to 35 homers and, a 240 average.
Yeah, I think it absolutely makes sense if you're chasing some power in this range. I think he's got about as much as you're going to find from any one player at this stage of the draft. Ramón Laureano really turned the clock back to 2019 last season. Ended up getting traded into a situation with the Padres where I think he actually has a path to a career high in big league playing time. And actually, the next time Ramón Laureano gets to 500 big league plate appearances in a season will actually be the first time that he does it. I'm actually very surprised by that. In my head, he's got 2 full seasons worth of plate appearances. I don't know, 1 in Oakland and 1 somewhere else in my head. But he's been kind of a journeyman these last couple of years. And I think the Padres need him to be a regular for them. Interesting, though, the career numbers, they're above average against righties. So righty on righty, he's fine. He's just got a higher strikeout rate than you think. The more I looked at Ramón Laureano, the more I realized that the version of him in my head was actually different than the one you see on the pages in front of you.
Yeah, with the suspension for the performance enhancing drugs and with the injury history, it's tempting to put the two together and just say, he's pushing his muscles as far as they can go, and sometimes they go. I mean, it's been a lot of soft tissue for him, a lot of different types of ailments for Laureano. It's kind of hard to analyze somebody like this. I mean, what is the risk that he gets suspended again? What's real in his numbers and what isn't? It is nice to see that, even post suspension, he's put up big barrel rates, and that, there does seem to be some softening in his strikeout rate, that he's like finding a good approach for himself. And in terms of on-field projections, I have found myself with a share or two of his, because again, he's the kind of guy who's really close to league average in these 15 teamers, where you want a 258 average and 22 homers and I think it was like 12 or 13 steals, and he might he'll get pretty close to hitting all of those. And to get an average guy at this point in the draft, where you're getting Laureano to be your fifth outfielder or fourth outfielder, I think is worth it. Yeah, but I do think the plate appearance is a big question. You've got Steamer saying 441. You got Oopsie saying 560. There's a big gap there in value.
Yeah, and I think that's going to really dictate just how much he pops relative to other guys in this tier. Is how much playing time are you comfortable projecting on him? I do think 500 plate appearances seem very, very reasonable given the situation in front of him right now in San Diego. Let's drop down to tier 5B. So we're kind of in that pick 240, 250 range. Wilyer Abreu, Mickey Moniak, Trent Grisham, Adolis García, Colton Cowser, and Giancarlo Stanton. There's some big names in here. And there's a guy that went 1-1 in his draft in here. There's a guy that might end up in the Hall of Fame in this group. Like, this is actually kind of a fun, random group of players.
Yeah, I shop a lot in these buckets, because I tend to. I mean, you notice I'm putting Beck as my third outfielder. I tend to gather outfielders late, and even in weekly leagues, my idea is that, with Kerry Carpenter types, with these lefties, that we're going to talk about a few of these lefties that get platooned. I can fill my fourth and fifth outfielder spots with a bunch of lefties. So what I've done is find 3 or 4 lefties that combine for 2 spots. And I just hope that they don't all face left-handed pitchers at the same time, so far the strategy has worked pretty well for me. Plus, outfielder, like I was at the beginning of this, is a disambiguated situation where it's just outfield and you don't have to fill a certain spot. You don't care if he's a center fielder or a left fielder. Plus, there are, there's more, part-time. There's more guys who have infield, outfield, and there's guys who just have outfield eligibility that can help you there. So I tend to shop in here. In the last tier, I loved Ramos and Beck, the right-handers. In this tier, I start to take in left-handers, even if I know they have a platoon risk. Some of the right-handers in here in this group leave me cold, and I'm ready now to start taking a couple left-handers to maybe fill one spot, even in a weekly league.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think you can look at Wilyer Abreu and be somewhat surprised that his batted ball data looks a lot like Kerry Carpenter's, but Wilyer Abreu is a better defender, and that might push his playing time a little bit more. I think the way that roster's built, they don't necessarily have to play him against all lefties, but they'll play him against more lefties than the Tigers are going to start Kerry Carpenter against. So you have to think about those small margins, I think, as you're going through here.
Chris Cotillo reports that, on in December 9th, I think that must have been from the winter meetings, that the Red Sox plan to challenge Abreu to face more left-handers this coming season. I think if you look at their current depth chart, which may change, because right now they're starting, Marcelo Meyer at third and Romy Gonzalez at second. I think, they're likely to add somebody to that infield. If they don't, I think they're going to be using so much of their platoon juice and extra players on third and second to make those decent positions that they may run out of space to platoon Abreu. And even if they bring somebody in, Yoshida needs a platoon partner at DH. I'm pretty sure that's true. I think they'll probably still be platooning at second. And, that is, it just takes one injury to be like, Abreu, we need you in there against the lefty.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at the playing time. It's not strict platoon, and there's a chance that it gets reasonably soft, just depending on how things break. Just a nice balance of overall skills, though, for Wilyer Abreu, kind of an underrated player in a lot of circles. Moniak, I think, has quietly whittled away at one of his biggest flaws. His strikeout rate came down again last year, and I thought in Colorado especially that was really unlikely to happen. And some of that might just be optimizing the usage, but just the fact that he's got under a 25% K rate now at age 27, that surprises me based on how much swing and miss we saw from him when he broke into the big leagues earlier in his career.
And he still has that swing and miss, like he still swings and misses 14% more than 14% of the time, which is, top 25 type number. The weird thing was when I looked at 23 qualified hitters, and there is survivorship bias in this, which means to say that these guys made it to being qualified hitters despite a big flaw because they do all sorts of other things. Hit for power. Moniak does that. There's all sorts of reasons why this might be a truth. But the truth is, take 23 qualified batters with a 14 plus swing strike rate like Moniak, and only one of those hit players has over a 30% strikeout rate. Now, here's the key. Only 2 of those 23 qualified batters with a big whiff rate have plus walk rates. So what they have all done is become more aggressive. Be aggressive in the zone, hit your way, get a hit before you strike out. It's the Josh Hamilton approach. You can see it if you look at Moniak's swing chart. This is off of Savant. What you see is he swings more at heart than the average player. He swings more at shadow than the average player. And yes, he swings more at chase than the average player, but by swinging more at heart and shadow, he hopes to, basically get that hit before he gets in trouble. And I think it works. It's not an approach I like, it's, my bias is against it. So I wanted to say, okay, let me leave that aside and let me just look at this very basic analysis. He does not have great defense. And the projections are for around league average offense. So what is his role on this team? And I think it's DH, and DH can be anybody, because even if I like a McCarthy Freeman platoon and right better than I like Moniak and right, how much are you going to play Goodman at DH? I think there's still a lot of plate appearances left at DH.
Yeah, I think Goodman's going to catch 120-ish games. Like, they're going to really use him a lot in that role because that maximizes his long-term value, and he showed a lot of improvement there. So, yeah, just in terms of how the playing time fits, the other assumption I think you have to make if you're going to give Mickey Moniak most of the big side platoon DH plate appearances is that Edward Julian, who they just acquired, is going to be the big side platoon at first base. And I think once we get to that Rockies team preview, we can parse through it in a little more detail. But I do think 450 plate appearances and 20 homers seems very reasonable for Mickey Moniak, given what he's showing in terms of batted ball quality. The next player in this group maybe has the most value, but I actually don't know. Trent Grisham, 34 homers last year. I mean, in terms of what he actually did, I think he would be the highest in the player rater. 348 OBP. Had a career best 14.2% barrel rate. And he's run double-digit barrel rates before. And it's just always been kind of a strange profile. I mean, earlier in his career, it was more balanced. 15 homers, double-digit steals in San Diego, low average, good OBP, defensive value kind of propped him up. And he's just had such a meandering path to this point. He accepted the qualifying offer to stay with the Yankees. The weirdest thing maybe of all, though, for Trent Grisham is you think, okay, a left-handed hitter with previously somewhat limited power. Surely he hit most of those home runs at Yankee Stadium and took advantage of the short porch. Nope. 21 of the 34 home runs were actually hit on the road. He's a better hitter on the road overall. He hit a 269, 367, 537 line away from Yankee Stadium, and he was a weird league average hitter with a home park that would ordinarily help a left-handed hitter. I mean, some of that's the approach is different. What are you doing with Trent Grisham right now?
I'm out. This is a career 102 WRC plus guy, and all the projections say that after this career year, a 29-year-old will regress back to a 113. I mean, even if you believe that, there's some hidden stuff. Here's why I don't necessarily believe it too, is that if you look at Trent Grisham's strikeout, walk, pull, hard hit, ground ball, fly ball, swing, zone swing, O swing, look at all those rates, they're all the same. You know, he basically, if you're looking for something that changed, he spread out a little bit in the box and he swung fast more often. So he basically he was a little bit more aggressive, took more chances, had more A swing boost. Is that enough to explain going from, basically a league average bat or below? Actually, he was below before he put up a 129 WRC plus last year. So I think the risk is he goes back to being a 90 WRC plus guy like he was the 3 years before. Now, what if he does that? The weird thing about Grisham was last year the defense was down. What do you do with a guy who was a pretty good center fielder for a long time and then suddenly the defense is down in center field? Well, Jordan Rosenblum made StatCast projections, and when he looked at it by positions, he said corner outfield, corner infield, those guys actually, they do fine as they age. You would regress those guys back to their career norms if they had a bad year because, that's just how it's looked. Center field, not the same story. What he found is that there's a cliff in center field. At some point, you're just not a center fielder anymore. When he did his regressed StatCast projections, this is Jordan Rosenblum of Oopsie. When he did his StatCast regressed projections, he has Grisham as a defender behind Brandon Marsh, Cedric Mullins, Marcio Dubon, and here's the big name, Cody Bellinger. He has him as a worse defender than Cody Bellinger. That is meaningful. Grisham comes out cold. He's got a 90 WRC plus. Bellinger's not, they just signed him. He's their center fielder if they need him to be. All of a sudden, Grisham's a sub. And Jason Dominguez is playing.
I mean, all he has to do is out-hit Jason Dominguez to keep his job, which I don't know, man. Are you sure? Are you really sure that because you could play Bellinger in center and move Grisham to left? You could just do totally. That. Like you could just flip them.
But you're talking about you're talking about like a 29, 30-year-old Trent Grisham versus like a 24-year-old switch hitter who was a top prospect. And, like it's not that hard to flip him and say, oh, wow, hey, Jason's better than
Dominguez's defense in left matters as part of this equation too, though. I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Right. And I would also say, as much as Grisham had that weird 2-oppo sort of approach earlier in his career, he pulled the ball a ton. So he should actually be able to take advantage of the park even more in 2025 than he did in 2024. So maybe the home run balance flips a little bit. And even if you don't want to say 34 again, I think low to mid-20s home run power looks very legit with the batted ball quality. I'm just wondering if he's not like a later career Isaac Paredes, like just another guy that said, this is my best possible approach. If I do this, I can get paid because I hit 25 plus homers and I play good enough defense in the outfield and, just ticks enough boxes, right?
Just need to sell out more often. I have a good sense of the zone. This is in the zone. I'm a sellout. Oops, it was a slider. All right, anyway, on to the next pitch.
Right. So as someone that very rationally kind of agrees with the process by which you're not into Trent Grisham, I kind of see a little more of that low to me. Yeah, everybody else kind of feels the way you do, so maybe I'm just into it. Maybe I'm fine with Grisham at this spot because it's a good lineup. The per plate appearance numbers might actually be really good in terms of the counting stats too.
But the difference in ADP rank and the composite projection rank right now is 4 ranks. Right. I think I might agree with you if he fell more. I mean, and there'll be rooms where he falls more. There are definitely rooms where people don't like him.
Yeah, he's definitely not a hard avoid for me. I'm more curious than most, I think, in the case of what Trent Grisham brings to the table in 2026. I think I like Adolis García maybe the most of this entire tier if I'm just trying to get lucky and catch a lot of extra value. I mean, I think the lineup is good. He should be the everyday right fielder in Philly. Even when everything was going wrong last season, air quotes, wrong, still hit 19 homers, stole 13 bases. Like, do we believe there's one more 25 homer, 10 steal season to come from Adolis García? It's at least a player I like if I just can afford the low average, what could go right in the other categories sort of dart.
Yeah, and I'd love him, I love him more even in shallower leagues. Like, he may not seem like he's a good 10-team or 12-team pick, but I think he's a great 10-team or 12-team pick for bench or utility. because if it doesn't work out, move on, right? Like, and I think it gets a little bit tougher in the deepest leagues where you need to depend on him. But even there, you're going to take, like in a draft and hold or something, you're going to take a 6th and 7th outfielder that hopefully will play in the big leagues this year to cover your ass if it doesn't work out, right? So I like him a lot, and I like the he's moving from a park that has, he hits fly balls, and currently, our current working thesis on why Globe Life is playing the way it is because it's a dome and they can play great outfield defense, and that's robbing him of BABIP. You can see the BABIP the last 3 years is down under 300 for Adolis Garcia. He hits a lot of fly balls. So he's going from a park that, you can play him really well, defensively and steal a bunch of hits from him, doubles in the outfield, to Philadelphia, where it's going to be harder to do that. It's a smaller outfield. It's a park that usually plays hitter friendly. And so I like this move. I did see in the Discord another competing theory on Globe Life, which had to do with the concrete that they used and the fact that they sunk the park into the ground. Altitude is meaningful. So if it is at sea level or if it is a lower park than most, then that could have something to do with it too. But I don't know how the concrete. I don't know about that one. I don't know how the concrete would change things other than it just being a dome, and domes also help pitchers because there's no crosswinds and all their pitches look exactly as they're supposed to. Globe Life is supposedly 600 feet above sea level, but where is that? Is that at the field, or is that the complex itself? Do they sink it below that? So I don't know. There's a question there about what the altitude of the park is. I love that he's moving parks. I love that he still stole bases. I love that he still hit 12% barrels. So I'm going to take Adolis Garcia in leagues this year.
Hoping for one more nice fantasy season from Garcia. Colton Cowser spooks me a little bit. I can talk myself into the good things being good, but I really worry about that K rate. 35.6% K rate. Platoon risk through the roof. Questions maybe about how good he is defensively in center field, at least for some. And a crowd on the depth chart, too, to make matters worse. So if some of those things weren't a concern, sure, you could take that dart. I don't think I can draft Colton Cowser at this price.
I think the thing that makes me feel better is that the weakest position on the roster is center field. I don't want to play Dylan Beavers in center field. I don't want to play Samuel Basayo in center field.
I mean, that's 100% not going to happen. So let's.
I don't really want to play Leody Taveras in center field, who is, I think, their backup. I think I might be okay with playing Leody Taveras as a lefty, caddy for Colton Cowser. But I think you're right to bring up the depth chart because, I looked at Oopsie, I looked at the Bad X, and I expected to see, oh, well, he's projected to be a 110 WRC player. He's got to be safe. He's got to be in like the top 5 or the top set. No, dude, this team is so good that he has the 9th best WRC plus projection by Oopsie and the 8th best by the Bad X. So yeah, man, I think he might get platooned. And yeah, if they decide that Beavers can play center, that's big time uh-oh. Now, I think Beavers can't play center. I've watched him play the outfield.
They didn't even try it last year, right? He was only in the corners last year. And Cowser's not bad out there. It's just like my assessment here is that usually if you strike out that much and you have problems at the plate, you need to be above average defensively in center to stick. And he's closer to average, at least by the metrics, but it also matters who your alternatives are.
Yeah, and I think Leotis is not a great alternative. And Beavers and Basayo both have options. So even if Taveras has a resurgence and they think he's a center fielder, they may keep Cowser up and send Beavers and Basayo down. They have that ability. So it is a stacked team. Anything can happen. But I love Cowser's on base ability. I love the underlying hit the ball hard, aspect to it. And I think he's got good speed. He's going to steal some bags. I still like Hauser. I'm going to take some picks. I have him in Devil's Rejects in my 20-team keeper league where it's OBP. I'm hoping that there's still that moment where he can tap into like plus OBP and become an everyday player for them. So I think he's kind of like a kind of a soft acquire in keeper leagues, while he can be a little bit risky. And I think maybe not a 10 and 12 team outfielder. I don't know. Maybe you take a shot at him in the Adolis García mold and get rid of him if he's being platooned or whatever.
Yeah, and I guess the longer term outlook is different if you're playing in an OBP league, especially. I think that's a huge toggle for me with interest in Cowser. Really efficient as a base stealer too, so has some power. Great on the base paths, just needs to get that swing and miss down to a more manageable level. Last of the group is Giancarlo Stanton, and coming off of a season where he missed time due to double tennis elbow, came back and hit 273, 350, 594 in 77 games. I mean, players like that are not available in this part of the pool. Like, it's just they don't exist this late. And Stanton still has Judgian barrel rates, 20% each of the last 2 seasons. So if you look back at the 2022 to 2024 injuries and playing time, Stanton was pretty frequently in that 450 plate appearance range, which, given his age and how tightly he appears to be wound physically, like the frequent problems he has just maintaining being a superhero stuck in a human's body, you can't expect much more than that, but he's still a really good, dangerous hitter despite being 36 and despite missing a lot of time with injuries.
Yeah, I have a real hard time with this one because of the injury history, because of the roster, and because you're buying him off of this sort of late career resurgence at 36 years old. And it is a bit of a resurgence on a per at bat level, but it was still only 281 plate appearances. And so, you're like, okay, well, this is like an excellent way to get power when I need it. Could he be a 6 outfielder? Yeah, but is he healthy at the times when you need him? And then I was like, oh, this is a great mono league thing. I buy him for $3. Well, guess what? I just did the auction calculator for AL only, and it spits out $12. So he's not going to go for $3 in your AL only auction. So I struggle to see where he's a value. I don't think I would much rather take guys around him right now. I have enough of like, well, anybody could be interesting at the right price, but I'm pretty much out. I just, yet how much value did people even get out of him last year? I know that, like, look at the player rater, and the player rater says he was the 64th best outfielder. So okay for a 5th outfield, but did people get all that with the 281 plate appearances, or do they miss a lot of it by half weeks when he returned and half weeks when he left? And you know what I mean? Like, do you think people got all of that juice? And it's a weird thing too. If he's only going to play that much, and the player rater says you're 64th, well, he didn't help you and runs an RBI, and you know what I mean? Like, there's no, I can't figure it out. Like, okay, Devil's Rejects, if he's in the draft, and I can get him in the restocking draft after 500 players are kept. Yeah, man, I'll take a free Stanton.
I'm smiling like an idiot because he did, if you just left him in the second half, he was the 18th ranked hitter in the second half of the season. The beautiful thing about this particular injury is that it was all mostly stuck together. So once he came back, it was a longer run where he was playing regularly. He's the DH, like he's the guy. Like they're not going to really take a lot of playing time away from him. I think it's good that they don't have, at least at this point in the calendar, they haven't brought back a Paul Goldschmidt or somebody else that would create a little bit of internal pressure for some of that playing time. It's really
there are rumors that they will, though.
I don't know. So you got to keep an eye out for that. But I actually kind of like this. It's a low average power play that probably works, and especially in yeah, I think it actually hits in a lot of formats for me. So I'm in. I'm into Stanton at the deep discount right now. But the injury history is very, very well documented at this point.
I like I said, I'll take guys if like they're free, but this doesn't seem free to me yet. Like, I'm going to take him over Josh Lowe? No, not me. That's not
You
happening.
love Josh Lowe. It's kind of interesting that you like Josh Lowe because I think Colton Cowser gives me some Josh Lowe vibes, but there could be enough differences in defensive value where
I mean,
Cowser.
good athletes with good plate discipline. Yeah, that's my type.
Not a bad type in general, I would say. This group includes TJ Friedl, Josh Lowe, Jung Ho Lee, Tommy Edman, Dylan Beavers, and Cedric Mullins. So we have a couple of we have an Oriole, we have a ghost of Orioles past.
I don't really shop in this bin too much, other than to just grab Josh Lowe.
So you're in on Josh Lowe. You think the Angels will play him all the time, most of the time, and that you're going to get a bounce back to a level close to his really kind of his only above average real life big league season at the plate?
Yeah, I'm a little bit more worried now, obviously. It's been 2 years of not performing like that, but he still has above average arm speed, leg speed, bat speed. And the reason the reason I like him is actually different than the reason I've liked him before. Before, I liked him as an athlete, and I thought I could get enough out of him, even just against righties, that it would be worth it. Now I like him because of opportunity. When I look at people who are pushing him, Rada is still a teenager. I think he's flawed. Bryce Teodosio, the center fielder, I think is a defensive backup. Matthew Lugo. All I see is flaws in the guys that are that would push him. So I think he'll play every day. I think that they acquired him to play him every day, and he'll play every day. The markets somewhat agree with me. I know that the projections now have fallen to the point where Josh Lowe is a 69th best outfielder. He's going as 63rd. It's a mild market approval rating. In this group, we also have Dylan Beavers that the market likes better than projections. We're going to talk about, Justin Crawford's coming up. Jack, that's where I got worried. The market liking him that much against projections. That's where I got worried and was out. But yeah, Josh Lowe, the markets like him, and I think I agree with the markets on this one. I'm taking him a lot of times to be my fourth outfielder in that group where I'm saying I'm going to take three lefty outfielders in a row, and I'm going to always have hopefully two that can play.
If there's a group of outfielders we've talked about at any point over the course of these 3 outfield previews that I would be likely to have zero exposure to, it's actually the 6 players on the screen right now.
I mean, like I'm saying, other than Lowe, like I'm out on this group for sure.
Yeah, like there's a use case for a few of them for sure, like because they're just depends on what you're doing in your build. TJ Friedl, this surprised me. He's turning 31 in August. How is he not 28? That's kind of weird. I thought it was strange last year. 685 plate appearances, but just 12 for 15 as a base stealer. So I reached out to our buddy, C. Trent Rosecrans, asked if there was some stuff going on with Friedl, just playing through injuries. And Trent's take was this, that Friedel's legs really weren't there. He was beat up all year. And I was going back looking through some old video. I saw that collision he had with Ellie De La Cruz in May. That looked bad for both of those guys. That was in the same inning in which he got hit by a pitch in the wrist. I think it impacted both of them. I think Ellie, the soft tissue stuff with his legs was worse than that collision, but it was just one of those things that I kind of had forgotten about. It was May. It was relatively early in the year. But I do think for the speedsters atop the order, the everyday guys, that cumulative wear and tear where your body just doesn't feel good starts to really take its toll. And what Trent pointed out was you can sometimes tell how good Friedel's legs are feeling by how often he's dropping bunts, which is kind of interesting. So I was looking back last season, 22 bunt attempts in 152 games. 2024, he was really banged up with a couple different injuries. He's had wrist injuries, hamstring stuff. Like he's been pretty banged up for most of his big league career. Only 11 bunt attempts in 85 games. Back in 2023, this is where I was kind of like going back to like, what's the speed potential here? He went 27 for 33 on the base pass that year. 32 bunt attempts at 138 games. So 10 more than he had just this past season in 14 more games. So I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, yeah, like there was something there clearly bothering him at various points, even though the overall playing time volume was still there. So I think there's a chance he runs a little bit more. The other thing Trent brought up too was just Tito being in charge. They hadn't changed first base coaches. Colin Cowgill's still the first base coach now. He was the first base coach under David Bell. Like, how much control does he have in the whole running game process? That's probably an open question right now. But I just think Friedl's a strange player. And I guess the good news, too, if you're just looking for like reasons to believe that he can be a nice glue guy as maybe your fourth or fifth outfielder, his power is not as Great American ballpark dependent as I thought. For the last 3 years, 22 of his 45 homers at home. So it's actually non-zero pop.
You have a note in here that he is a lefty with a 113 WRC plus against Southpaws for his career. Right now, the projections all say Dane Myers is going to platoon with him, or not all, but a lot of them do. And that's taking away from Friedl's overall plate appearance total. And so there might be a little bit of a chance that he just is the everyday center fielder, and Myers doesn't make the team, or Myers is like a traditional sort of bench outfielder for them. So I think there is a chance that he gets back to that max playing time. I haven't ended up with him because, it is also one of those things where, this point in the draft, a lot of times you're looking for someone who can do something for you, specifically, and he's just a little bit more oatmeal-y, where he's just going to advance your homers and stolen bases and everything without hurting your batting average. But he's not a patch. I saw people in the chat calling him fixers. He's not a fixer.
No, I think he's more of a stay on track in most of the categories. RBIs are the one area where he's going to lag because of his role, but I think generally he's going to do enough in the other categories if we're assuming reasonable health for his legs. And I think it's back to 20, 25 bags. I think he could do that.
And it also makes him a little bit of a sleeper in that oatmeal style, where like maybe everyone else is looking for fixers at this point. And they're looking for Sal Frelick and Stephen Kwan and like fixing their batting average, or they're looking for, Victor Scott later. We'll talk about him to fix their stolen bases, whatever. Like they're looking for fixers. And if you just built a nice team that you can hum along, you can just grab some value and get Friedl cheap. So I'm not categorically opposed to him. And also, somebody like Jung Lee, I'm not categorically opposed to him either. I do actually, you're asking in the rundown if this is what you see is what you get situation at this point. But I will point out that he had shoulder surgery before last year, and then he had dropped in bat speed from the year before that to last year. So, what if a full year off, he comes back and the bat speed's back up a little bit? Could he hit 12, 15 homers? I think that's in there. That's where he was the year before. And then I think the stolen base total is just a complete wild card. Like we said earlier, I think he could steal 5, 6, 7, or he could steal 20 if they decide to be more aggressive. And I do think that teams might look at what Josh Naylor and Juan Soto did, especially because it was covered in the media, and because somebody like Antoine Richardson was poached by another team, that there is a little level of like, are we behind in this? Should we be more aggressive? Can we do more with this? And if you go get Brendan Donovan, you get Harrison Bader, and you have Heliot Ramos, and you have like, you could be like, hey, let's run. Like in that lineup, who's the only guy who can't run? Pretty much Devers.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't be collectively more aggressive, even if you don't have any top end burners. Just everybody run some would make you a more dangerous team.
Yeah, so I'll take the upper end of Jung Lee's projections on homers and steals for those two reasons. And if you do that, you're talking about a good average, a help you in good average. He's a little bit like Friedl in terms of projections, and younger and a little bit more interesting, maybe.
Yeah, I do think the shoulder surgery recovery going into 2025 is probably your best on top of age. I think he's going to be 27. Like those are your best reasons to think that we haven't actually seen all the pieces fall into place yet. So maybe it's more of a 12 homer, 15 plus steal sort of profile with a good average. Like that's a nice player in a deep enough league. Tommy Edman goes in here. I don't think we talked about him at any other positions. It's year 2 of a 5-year deal.
It's the opposite case. You don't want the guy right after surgery.
No. And I think the thing about this is if there's a player I'm just totally out on right now, anywhere near this price, it is Tommy Edman, because rehab hasn't gone well. Like there's a Katie Woo report that he might not be ready for opening day. Rehab's not going as expected. He dealt with this last year. It might explain why the stolen bases tailed off as harshly as they did. Like we may eventually get to the other side of this, and Tommy Edman might be a nice veteran speed fixer again. That's possible. I think it's almost kind of important to his value to the Dodgers over the life of that deal that he gets back to that kind of level because he's a low OBP sort of guy.
Mhm.
Crushes lefties, just sort of gets by against righties, can play a couple spots. He's got the versatility of Chris Taylor without the swing and miss problems. So he'll probably age better if his body doesn't keep breaking down on him. But I'm just out. I'm Edmund right now. I can't wait for Tommy Edman to come back.
I think that this is an artifact. His ADP right now is an artifact of who's drafting right now. Right now, it's heavy draft and hold, and he's multi-position. I think he's actually not an outfielder for people. He's infielder, outfielder. He's in that group of guys that start going just because they have multi-eligibility. Like you start seeing them right at this point in the draft. I'm about to get there. It's the Miguel Vargas, Chase Mydroth, Josh Smith, Tommy Edman. I don't know. You know the guys I'm talking about, where people are like, "Ooh, I'm getting a backup at 2 or 3 positions, bang, in one roster spot." But I like all the other names. I said better.
Yeah, I could see myself being interested in Tommy Edman this time next year, but I'm not really there at the current prices right now. Dylan Beavers goes in this range. The projections say to pump the brakes a little bit, but a 35 game sample that he had with the O's last year was really nice. I mean, there's a sub 20% chase rate, big time OBP. There's power, there's speed, there's good plate discipline. I just think it's that depth chart problem we were getting to when we were looking at this outfield with Colton Cowser too. Is if Beavers can't play center field, if he's stuck to the corners, and he's got to deal with Tyler O'Neill being his platoon partner on paper. Tyler O'Neill's in year 2 of a 3-year deal. He's still owed $33 million. They'd have to just admit that's a sunk cost if they're really going to play Beavers ahead of him. So I just see too much playing time risk so long as the depth chart is intact with its current group of players healthy. That could change very quickly, especially given O'Neill's unfortunate injury history. But I think I'm just staying away from Dylan Beavers in redraft leagues for the time being.
The case I'll make for Dylan Beavers is in daily leagues, because I don't believe that he's in a platoon with Tyler O'Neill necessarily, but I do believe that Dylan Beavers, Tyler O'Neill, and Samuel Basallo are going to handle right field and DH together. So that's 3 guys for 2 spots. And it's not even 3 guys for 2 spots, because Basallo's probably the backup catcher. So it's kind of like 2.5 guys for 2 spots. So I still think I can get Beavers to 550, 600 plate appearances. That's the upper end of his projections. If you do look for a projection system that has 550, it's Zips with a 249 average, 17 homers and 15 steals. That's worth buying to me. It's kind of like what I'm hoping for from Josh Lowe or Colton Cowser or any of these like sort of lefties that I'm talking about. So he fits into my, get some lefties at the end strategy. And if he's the right price, if he drops, then I'll take him. But I like Josh Lowe's playing time is way more secure, right? And even Cowser's might be, just because he's an incumbent with more defensive value, right? So Beavers did a lot of things that are good, but you're right. The potential spread of plate appearances this year, I think, goes all the way down to maybe 200 plate appearances, where he's not even up to begin the year. And then on the upper end, I think it probably caps around 550, 600. And that might even take some sort of injury. But, Tyler O'Neill gets injured a lot. So,
yeah, if you haven't heard this Basallo to the outfield stuff, it's kind of wild. It's there's a quote from him in a Masson story. And he says, "I'm prepared to play wherever they want to put me at, even if that means time in the outfield." He said,
"Yeah, I wasn't taking that seriously. I was just making."
I was like, "Yeah, I think he's just like, I want to play." I think that's my read of the situation. I think it's catcher, first base, DH. I mean, like they could, if they want to give Alonso DH time.
I think your eyes and look at the body sometimes.
Also, I just think he's there to hit. And they'll find a spot for him to hit, and I don't think he really plays into the outfield mix, even though it has like bubbled up at least as some kind of half joke, we'll call it at this point. A longtime Eno favorite closes up this group. Cedric Mullins, still kind of a low average, double-digit homer, maybe 20-ish stolen base guy, cheap. The Rays didn't give him $7 million for nothing. But I do think there was an aspect of his defense I hadn't thought about until you sent those win stats. Fly balls impacted by wind. You had like a ranking of outfielders. I think Pete Crow Armstrong, by far, like the most wind impacted outfielder in the game. I'm mad. Who'd have thought, right? Pete Crow Armstrong playing center field at Wrigley, a lot of day games and all that. And it made me wonder if Cedric Mullins going indoors to the Trop actually plays a more effective center field because for half of his games, weather is a non-factor now. So all that is to say, like, there's a couple things in favor of Mullins playing a lot. One is that the Rays are cheap and they gave him $7 million. The other is the way their stupid depth chart is built right now. I both like love and hate them at the same time.
Oh my God.
They have 3 right-handed regulars that you would say are probably in the lineup every day. Junior Caminero, Yandy Diaz are the first 2. And the third one's not even a guarantee. Carson Williams, the shortstop, but I think his glove makes him really important to this team. So they're going to have 4 shared spots. One of them is catcher, right? You're going to play 2 catchers, and that leaves 3 platoons. So if you're doing the math, you're like, well, that means there's 2 spots that have a lefty in the depth chart that have to play every day. I think Mullins, by process of elimination, is one of those 2 lefties, or at least in consideration. Maybe it's
like
not
Mullins
consistent
and
all
Lux.
year. Mullins and Lux.
Or Aranda.
Aranda?
Yeah, so 2 out of those 3 are going to win.
They got to pick 2 of those guys. Chandler Simpson, if they're going to play him in left, so you're going to just play against everybody to be a pest. I don't know, man.
I would rank Simpson as the 4th least. I don't even know if he'll
so left-handed.
Camp. Yeah, that is really interesting.
You're like, Chandler Simpson's going to retire, dude. He should just not play baseball.
No, I'm not saying that.
Just leave the sport, dude. Like, oh, the shade for Chandler Simpson has gone so far.
You're right. I mean, like, what if he did go down, like, who would they'd be doing, like a Malloy Melton platoon or something? Yeah, okay.
That's the weird thing, and that's why they're last in team previews, because it's so left-handed right now. It's actually, I think, a pretty big challenge to figure it out. So
normally the way you do it, if you didn't care about defensive value, is you would say who has the highest overall projection, because then you could estimate what their left-handed platoon split was even without looking at their actual one, right? So if you're saying if Jonathan Aranda has a true talent 125 WRC plus projection, then he's more likely to play against lefties because you would estimate him for like a 105 against lefties, right? And so in this case, I think Aranda is maybe the safest to maybe actually right now face lefties. But Lux and Mullins are much closer to league average overall. So you could say, I really want to platoon those guys. Mullins has more defensive value.
Are you actually in on Mullins though right now at this price? Do you think?
Not really. I haven't bought it. It's a little bit of just a worry about the direction of the team, you know, what he means to them. I think a 1-year, $7 million deal also is like, if it doesn't work out, it's super easy for them to just even DFA him. You know, like, I don't think he's that close to being DFA'd, but he could be. I mean, if the defense doesn't come back and he's a 75 WRC plus guy, what do they care? You know,
it's a really cheap shot, maybe at 2020 though this late. So that's why would you do it? I have not so far in my early drafts. We'll see if that changes. On to tier 6B, where I'm a little more excited. I think what's going to happen is these 6B group guys are going to move ahead of some of the 6As, and maybe even some of the 5Bs.
All better. Look at
they're
this.
They're all more interesting for different reasons. Almost all of them,
dude.
I'm glad you got that. At least the first 3: Evan Carter, Chase DeLauter, Matt Wallner, Victor Robles, Justin Crawford, and Harrison Bader. Eno put that line in there in front of Robles because Robles is 4th on the Cryon. Okay, so here's the deal. Evan Carter, one of my favorite players at price right now. This will not be the price in March, guaranteed. Like, he's going to cost you more. He's going to cost you a pick that goes probably
because he'll demonstrate his health, or he won't. But I think he'll either go up or down because he'll demonstrate his health or he won't.
Let's assume he gets through spring training healthy. He's going to move up, I would say, as much as like 5 rounds in ADP because this is such a soft part of the board. It doesn't take much to go from 275 to 200.
And he's exactly what I want to take next to like a Josh Lowe, right? It's like, if I can have 1 or 2 of these guys in here, maybe I can push the combined number for that roster spot to like 250, 25, 25, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, this is a guy that fits my strategy perfectly.
If he's available in the pick 250 range or later, 100% absolutely in. If he's up at 200, I think I'm still pretty interested. Even though the injury history is pretty bad, Carter played 106 and 131 games in 2022 and 2023, kind of just minors and I think a little bit of time in the big leagues at the end of 2023, 45 games in 2024, 88 games in 2025. He's still only 23 years old. 457 career big league plate appearances, 11% better than league average. He's a solid big league player. Like I think there's little doubt about that. Speed looks like his best contribution. Average might not be bad. Runs should be there. There's non-zero pop. He was 14 for 16 as a base stealer last year. So I think when you're looking at all of these guys that go late and saying, I need to make up ground in speed, I need a fixer, this is a fixer that actually is showing a little bit of floor and actually has more ceiling because it could all click. He could be the regular center fielder for this Rangers team.
One risk, to me is just they've said, oh, we're going to try Langford in center, and that doesn't seem like a big deal. But this team is loaded with everyday starters at a lot of places. So it's kind of the opposite of the Rays, where it maybe puts more risk on the lefties that are in the depth chart because, hey, what am I going to do with this extra Cody Freeman anyway? I see Josh Jung as starts every day when he's in. Corey Seager starts every day when he's in. Wyatt Langford starts every day when he's in. Brandon Nimmo starts every day when he's in. I think even Jake Berger starts every day when he's in. So if you want a platoon in center at second and catcher and DH, you can. You absolutely can on this team. Now, I don't think they have great depth because I do like Alejandro Osuna a little bit, and I like Cody Freeman a little bit. I've taken him at the very end of drafts. I don't like Justin Foscue that much. I don't see a prospect that's going to push, that depth chart at all. And they may just want to play their best players every time they can because they've been having a hard time putting together offense in Texas. So the other thing I want to point out is that Evan Carter has a basically replacement level composite projection, 50 cents he's worth according to the composite projections, but they all assume a pretty heavy platoon in center. They're giving him about 400 plate appearances. So that's where I think your upside comes from. And then if you just take him as a platoon bat, you can put as your sixth outfielder, your util, and you can, platoon him with another lefty like I'm doing. I think it works. And I think there's the upside that he just announces himself and gets to a little bit more bat speed and uses that excellent eye and becomes a, 115, 120 WRC plus overall, which means, hey, he's good enough to play against lefties too.
The other part of this too, if you're giving a team health grade, we talk about it a lot for pitching, but for a position player group that has Brandon Nimmo, who's been playing through injuries, Corey Seager, Jock Peterson, Jake Berger, Josh Jung, and Carter himself. You're like, all those guys have had tons of problems. Carter's the youngest one. Carter being a lot younger, I think bodes well. Like you're much more likely to bounce back and stay healthy in your early 20s. Quad, back, and wrist last year.
Speaking of, I did have I found a quote saying, I actually feel really good right now. After last year, I was just kind of telling myself that I feel good. So,
right.
All right. Here we go.
I like that as a sign of things maybe being better. So yeah, Evan Carter, one of my favorites at price right now, but expecting that price to go up a few rounds.
And speaking of a D health grade, Chase DeLauter.
Generous. And again, like I don't say that trying to be rude to him. He's just had really unfortunate health problems, a lot of foot injuries along the way. He's played fewer than 60 games in each of his 3 seasons in the Guardians organization. But we talked about this a little bit on our episode with Trevor May on Thursday. For a team that is just looking for any and every internal bat to bolster that lineup, this is a guy that can hit in the middle third of the lineup. Like he's a difference maker. Even if he's just average out there, that keeps him playing a lot if he can just get past all the injuries. So are you getting enough of a discount injury-wise to take the flyer on DeLauter right now?
Yes. I like him here. Steamer likes him too, as you can see from this chart. Steamer over Oopsie likes Anthony Santander, who we talked about earlier. That's kind of a fun one. Cedric Mullins, Chase DeLauter, and then Willie Castro and TJ Friedl are also guys where Steamer is a little bit ahead. And I think that part of that is that Steamer, has 500 plate appearances projected for him. Zips has 200. which I just kind of love that. But to make your point about projections going in, even if you take Steamer, who has a 107 WRC plus projection for DeLauter, and then you look at the regular players, he actually has the third overall WRC plus projection, fourth overall from Steamer. So that seems pretty safe. If he's healthy, they need, like you said, they need to put him in there, more than a Nolan Jones or a David Fry or anybody. Those guys are all projected for below average lines. So I'm in. It's an upside play. I would love him to be my util, but even as a fifth outfielder, I can probably get a sixth outfielder that covers me when he's hurt.
Right. And I think there's a ceiling of a guy that could win the AL Rookie of the Year award. I give him 130, 135 games, and there's actually a chance that happens.
It's a great pick in 12 and 10 team leagues for
because if he's hurt, you drop him, right?
Yeah.
Easy enough. I think this next player is kind of fun but tricky to decide like what you really believe about him. It's Matt Wallner. He hits the ball very, very hard and even hit it a little bit more often last year. 29.1% K rate. Only hit 228 on balls in play. Previously ran BABIPs north of 350. So
he deserves some of that with that fly ball rate. I mean, a 50% fly ball rate. This guy is just trying to jack homers. That's what he's trying to do.
But he smokes the ball really hard. So a 228 seems like a harsh overcorrection the other way, even if you're not going to say 350 belongs in the projection. Is he maybe like another Brent Rooker type, a late blooming, power heavy guy that is getting those opportunities and slowly like whittling away at the big flaw? I mean, even the Rooker's like breakthrough season, we talked about it, I think on the last Outfield episode or part 1, it was a 30% K rate that year. I mean, do you see similar paths for Wallner to figure it out? Being a lefty, it's a little bit harder because he's always going to be in danger, depending on who's in the roster, of losing some of that time. But I looked at it. Of the times he was not on the IL last season, he had a hamstring strain in April and some back spasms in September. When he was healthy last year, I saw 20 left-handed starters that the Twins faced. He started against 13 of them.
That's not bad. I figured.
Yeah. So if they give him that against lefties and then all the starts against righties, that actually might be enough playing time for him to be a little undervalued in this range.
Another reason I like Matt Wallner, other than the bat speed and the hitting heartedness, is that his plate discipline's pretty good. He's a little aggressive, but all that aggression is in the zone. He's a 75% in zone swing rate, which is almost 10 percentage points higher than league average. And he actually still manages to not chase more than league average. So to be that aggressive and not chase more than league average, I'm giving him a good eye at the zone, poor bat to ball. I mean, this is in effect, it's the Giancarlo Stanton approach. It's just hit the crap out of the ball and outdo your mistakes. But when that is paired with a bad eye at the plate, I think you get in more trouble. With him, at least, he's doing this with strikes. He's swinging hard at strikes. And it's maybe led to some of his injuries with the oblique and other things like that. But he's 28, and at one of these years, he can put together a full healthy season. And that might be 600 plate appearances if he's only, missing every other lefty. Then you look at the depth chart with the Twins. The Twins today moved on from general manager Derek Falvey, or he was the president of baseball operations at this point.
Or he moved on from them.
Yeah, or he moved on from them, whatever it was. I think to some degree, this is a team that's looking towards the future. If they make my Trevor Larnach trade, there's an opening there. I think that Josh Bell is the soft spot on this roster. They're looking towards the future. If Josh Bell doesn't play well, they can let him go, and that opens up something. Maybe Larnach plays first, DH. So there's a way that Wallner gets into regular playing time. I would just say that the risk is I have no idea who plays every day on this team. I guess I would say whoever is the shortstop, but if it's Brooks Lee to begin the year, I don't know if it will be at the end of the year. I like Kellen Culpepper there. I guess Royce Lewis plays every day. Brian Buxton plays every day. He's healthy. Ryan Jeffers is in a regular sort of catcher situation. And then everything else is sort of, I don't know, shrug emoji. Maybe Luke Keeschel plays every day.
Yeah, I could see Luke Keeschel getting that sort of run. So there's a shot that Wallner's in that group of 5 for the Twins. I think if you're trying to put some context to it, I actually like him more than Stanton, even though Stanton goes earlier. But I would
Yeah.
say if you're looking for that cheap power late, like go Wallner first, and Stanton's there as one of the possible fallback options, not the only one, just to add a little more analysis to it. I don't talk about previous relationships, so I'm going to let you analyze Victor Robles.
Oh man, I am not prepared. I thought you would wax poetic.
Of course I'm prepared. Fine,
No,
I got it. No,
Victor, no,
everyone
no.
remembers the fluky injury from him diving into the net.
But also,
Kinda,
Dominic Canzone is a terrible fielder. I think this is really relevant here.
it's very relevant because defensively, Robles in a corner, I think, is going to be excellent.
Yeah.
I think what we saw is an organization that was very aggressive and efficient on the base pass last year. We've talked about Naylor. We've talked about Randy Arozarena being caught less. What we saw from Robles when he got to Seattle in 2024 was some of the tools that we thought were there all along, or at least the tools that I thought were there all along. And I know I'm very much in danger of just being just swallowed up by this again and just getting destroyed by my own emotions. But I think cheap speed is the approach here. I think it's a good average with cheap speed, a shot at being high in the order, and it's a lineup that scores a lot of runs. I think he can actually get 500 plus plate appearances fairly easily if he doesn't, hurt himself again in a catastrophic sort of way. So I don't know. I'm kind of back in a little bit on Robles. He said calmly.
I mean, I like that he's a right-hander and he can play defense. So I think he's actually fairly safe for playing time, other than the injury aspect, which hasn't been great to him. And it's not a team that has a ton of offensive firepower. So if he just hovers around league average, even if he's a 90 WRC plus with a good glove out there that can run, I think that they'll play him. So I'm into it, and I have a little way of grouping him for me. He's in that little bit of a speed fixer. You alluded to that, where he, cheap speed. I'm going to put him together with Victor Scott and just say, if I need late speed in a draft and hold, or, if I want to put speed on my bench, even in a 15 team league, a speed outfielder on my bench or at util, I think they're roughly equivalent. I mean, I think that Scott will steal more, maybe. Yeah, I think Scott will steal more. I think Scott's a little bit safer because he plays great center field defense. But I think you can group them. I think you can group them in case you always kind of want to, if you have a strategy where you're like, ooh, I really need 20 stolen bases at util in round like 30, then you have to be really careful, because if you only have one guy that does that and he just goes right before you, oops, or you have to jump that guy, a ton of picks to make sure you get him. So it's nice to have 2 or 3 guys that fit a mold. And I think maybe to some extent, Justin Crawford could fit that too. It's just that Crawford, has the most risk of the 3, where, I mean, he's never played in the big leagues. They don't have to just hand him a job to begin the year next year.
No, but defensively, a very good center fielder, I think, by all accounts. So he could be their best option defensively.
Except a 40/50 fielding grade on Justin Crawford from Fangraphs.
Yeah, I was reading Keith's blurb on him, though. Keith's got him well above average in center.
Okay.
So I think if we're trusting the Keith evaluation, and I am in this case, I think that could be something that makes the difference.
Plus,
for
the
Crawford.
team is sort of saying he might just take center field, right? Like, that's sort of the idea, is they're going to give him the chance in spring.
Yeah. As far as like the Mariners lineup, by the way, I think it's like a top 10 lineup. I know they were tied for second in WRC plus last year. That was with Cal Raleigh breaking everything, just in a ridiculous sort of way.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have besmirched the whole lineup. I'm just saying that at the bottom of the lineup, I don't see somebody. I guess Luke Raley could take Robles' job.
Raley and Canzone both being on that depth chart is kind of weird, because I think Raley's a more competent defender of the two, but Canzone looks like he might be the better hitter of the two. And then you need DH to be somewhat available for Cal on the days where he's not catching. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I like either one of Canzone or Raley in deep leagues as much as I did before. I need one of those guys to get traded somewhere else. And then I think maybe for the deep league purposes, it all kind of falls together. But I don't know, man. I think Victor Robles plays more than the projections call for. I see a 368 next to his name for plate appearances. If you run ATC into the auction calculator, I'm taking the over on that because I think his defense and his on-base skills will actually matter. But yeah, I'm with you on Crawford. Risk, but maybe a fixer in the stolen base category. We see it a lot of times, though. A young player comes up and has to make a lot of adjustments to the big leagues. And I think Crawford will as a hitter. The stolen bases might not be there right away. It could be a slightly like delayed contribution in that category, despite what he's shown us so far in the minors. Harrison Bader goes in this range, kind of just a nice oatmeal-y sort of player.
A real quick thing on Justin Crawford. He's running 60% ground ball rates in the minors, and nobody did that in the majors last year. That was a qualified hitter. The closest was Christian Yelich, and so you're asking a lot of him to make the most of that. Hit it hard. Hit it as hard as Christian Yelich. Make as much contact. That's a lot. I mean, the next one is Yandy Diaz with 54. 53.6 even. So. There's definitely, and this is something that people have all said along about Justin Crawford all along. So I'm not saying anything that you never heard before. I'm just saying that points to what you're saying, that there may have to be adjustments, and he hasn't necessarily made them in the minors yet. He's pushed that from a 68% ground ball rate up to 60, but that's a pretty extreme approach right now.
Yeah, it really is. Harrison Bader, last of the bunch. I mean, we know important to the Giants for his defense. Got the 2-year deal that we talked about in our Thursday episode. That career high 501 plate appearances last year kind of blew my mind to see that from a 31-year-old. I mean, that just kind of speaks to the injury history. I think they'll give him every opportunity to be a max volume player if his legs hold up. And he made that really interesting trade-off, more swing and miss, but tapped into power more consistently. 17 homers a year ago. Kind of interesting that he's been inefficient as a base stealer. 17 for 25 with the Mets in 2024, 11 for 18 across 2 stops a year ago. So I wonder if that facet of his game is starting to dwindle a little bit.
The nice thing when you look at the depth chart, I guess Jung Lee is the backup, but I don't know that I love his center field defense. And then Drew Gilbert is also listed. Luis Matos is on there, but I don't think he's a center fielder. I don't even know if he makes that team, and he's out of options. So that's an interesting one for the team preview. But I'm just saying they don't really have a center fielder other than Harrison Bader. So if he's healthy, he's in there.
So we have one more bit of outfielders to get to. It's going to be at the later part of the episode about the DH UT only players. So there's a lot of interesting names still to come for those in deeper leagues trying to round out benches. So don't worry. If we haven't got to guys that you're interested in, there's a good chance they're going to be covered on the Monday episode. You can join our Discord, continue the conversation over the weekend. If you hear this during the weekend, go listen to PitchCon presentations. Those are happening all weekend. Our good buddy
I'm doing
Nick
a
Pollock
craft on with Nick Pollock on Saturday, and we'll be talking about some of the pitchers we rank very differently.
Yeah, there you go. Some disagreements in the ranks, and then of course that's for charity too, to fight ALS. So I think they've already raised about half of the goal in the first day and change. So great work by Nick and the team over there at Pitcher List. A lot of good folks doing some panels this weekend. So be sure to jump in on that if you can. If you made it all the way to the end of this episode, thanks for listening all the way through. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Monday.
Thanks for listening.